Are we having a party here? I don't know.
Welcome to Polishing Profits. Join our 3 industry experts boasting 140 years of experience as they unlock building service contracting secrets that can revolutionize your business.
Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good twilight. I think I've covered everything. They say you're never supposed to say the day or what time of date it is when you do these things, so they're always usable. So that should cover us. And I'm not for all time zones and all time. So with all that said, welcome to Polishing Profits. And away we go. Ed, what word of wisdom, one word of wisdom do you have people need for the day? Just one word.
Vacation.
Sharon.
Vacation.
He's on vacation. I'm going to relax.
Relax and vacation. I'm going to go with adult beverage.
So relax. Where are we going?
We're going for cocktails. I think there's a show about cocktails already. I'm not sure. Okay. So today, courtesy of Mr. Ed Selkow, we have a title for this. A working title, no less. And it is, I got to check my notes, so I don't want to get this wrong.
No. He put so much
Startup secrets that'll make you or break you. 0 to profit in 45 days or less. How's that, guys?
That's
for a headline and a sub-headline.
Right. Yeah, you handle that one, though, that 45-day thing.
Yeah, I'd throw it in there. I could get them to profit in 45 days if they were under 10 grand. That's another story. And that's a month. Okay, Sharon, we're going to let you kick this thing out down the road and get us started.
So one of my hot buttons when I was doing startups was, after miserably getting upside down with my labor when I was first new to this business, was to create a cleaning plan for the building, to have a layout of the building, to know where my people were going to go. At the time, we were not doing team cleaning. That process was a whole different animal. But rather than have a crew of 4, 5, 6, 8, however many people, all come into the building with their supplies, and they all stand there scratching their heads. And a supervisor, this one here, this one here, this one here. We had a plan. This person goes here and does these tasks. And this is how long it will take to do these tasks. This person goes to this floor, does these tasks. This is how long they have. So we had a good handle on who was going to do what and the anticipated labor time it was going to take, rather than just flying in blind. Here's a mop and a bucket, go clean. That was a lesson hard learned when I was upside down in a heartbeat before I knew it on my first few jobs, my first toe dipping into this industry.
Ed, you've had 4 companies. What were some of your secrets for success?
Well, it was a big surprise, but when I had won my first really big building, I saw how the company I was with, I saw how they would start a building up. And I was surprised because what they did was they said, okay, it's X amount of square feet per floor. So we're going to have, 2 hours here, 3 hours on this floor, etc. But then what they did was they said, okay, now what's the plan when there's one person that doesn't show up? Now, okay, you do that. And then what's the plan if 2 people don't show up? What happens if there's 3 people that don't show up, and so on? Okay. And I mean, that just surprised the daylights out of me. And it made an awful lot of sense, by the way, because it really mattered. If you recall, those those first employees on those startups, they don't last. I mean, you only got a couple of them at the end, So
we did something very similar. We looked at, again, depending on the size of the building, but let's say it's a larger building, we would transfer staff that we knew were successful into a portion of that building to start it up or possibly stay. Then we would start out, and I'm just taking this number. For the first week, we knew we had to book labor at 150% of bid because of just what Ed said. Who doesn't show? Who isn't going to like the job? And then we would pare it back each week till we got to the final week, the 4th week, where we were hopefully at budget or very close. and we had kind of thinned out the herd who was going to, depending on the work. Manufacturing's a whole nother story because it's dirty work. People don't like it. Clean rooms, but in general, and we would have our staff together by the end of that. But we basically had a plan. And again, it depends on the size, but I think regardless of the size of the job, at the minute we got the award, we started working. That was so if we were going to start in 30 days, we had minus 30. So we had a list of things that we did the first 30 days. And one of them goes go out and meet the customer, thank them, have you walk you through the building, tell them what they're looking for, and just get on the page and start building that relationship before you ever start. Honestly, that saved our rear end from a whole host of mistakes that we might make in the first month because most people don't do a pre-start with their clients and go in and meet them, talk with them, get them involved, let them know what's going to go on, what they can expect, set the expectations, and here's where we're going with your business in the next 90 days. So we had this whole, and it wasn't a big deal, just a whole plan to set expectations and what they could expect. So we basically entering the building 90 days out, and then we would move into our regular cleaning rhythms or routines or runs or whatever. So that's one secret we had.
There's another big factor because we're talking to a whole boatload of people here, theoretically.
Boatload might not be a good word anymore, but we're talking to a lot of them. Go ahead.
Yeah, there was a distinct difference between. This is where going into all these companies has helped me. But there is a difference between a branch manager model and the separation between sales and operations. Okay. The sales guys, if all you had to do was sell, okay, you could kind of show up the first night and then not go back. Okay. Right. Now, the other way to do it that made the most sense to me, and this is how ABM did it, but what they had was they had a branch manager. So you're responsible to sell it, and then you're responsible to keep it clean. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what that allowed me to go in there and say, look, I'm not just a sales guy, because the property managers, they hate the salespeople because they lie. How do you know? You know what I mean? We're going to do this and we're going to do, it's all bull, and they know that. They've all been through this. So it really depends on how you got it set up. Most of the franchises are set up where there's a division between operations and sales, interestingly enough. But there's a huge difference between those two approaches as far as the structure of the company.
Very good. We always had a supply review. We spent within that 30 days to start up if you had 30 days. And smaller accounts, they want you next week on Monday. But bigger accounts, you have more lead time. But a supply review, getting in there to make sure you've got everything you need and that you're not overstocked with supplies because people always want more than what they really need to have. So doing the supply review ahead of time and getting your list created so that you're not duplicating things that you don't really need, rather than getting onto the job site day one. Oh my gosh, we didn't bring enough this, we didn't bring that. So getting that whole supply issue all under control and managed up front is very helpful. So you can hit the ground running.
I'm going to jump back to your first point because I think it's worth a little more time to the discussion. And we kind of glossed over it, but you said come in with a plan. But a plan, even for a small account, can be as simple as, is my cleaning route or run, whichever you call them, we used to call them cleaning runs. You had a whole movement already pre-established through the building. You knew where you were going to start, how you were going to move through. So you forecasted how you were going to clean that building, and you created your run or your methodology to clean it. So you had a starting point to start looking to where you can save time. So in other words, we'd have a map. This is how we're going to go through this building. Right. And we called them runs. And then from there, once we knew where we were starting, we knew what we could start changing and looking for as we went forward. And if I've misinterpreted what you meant by a plan and a run, or I think that's really what you were telling. Know how you're going to clean this thing when you walk in. What is your baseline, right?
Yes, your methodology, really, how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
you really have no choice, because if you were the one that did that final walkthrough with the client, okay, at this point, you're the only one that knows where the light switches are. You're the only one that knows where the supply closet is. You're the only one that knows what door to go out to get to the dumpster, etc. So,
What doors are armed?
yeah, no, that's another one. Is there an HR door that has to be locked or somebody dies? Kind of a deal. So,
Right. Right.
But I think what we're talking about here seems simple, but so many people don't do it. And particularly, that's why you have a tough time. And if you want to get to profit quickly, you've got to start with an organized plan that you can look at, understand, and communicate to somebody else. That's how you get down to time quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Get your cleaning people in.
Relative to your budget, to your labor budget, and is it doable? And hopefully that it is, because you priced it that way, that it's doable. But then you want to make sure it's happening. It's just like, I remember our old friend Dick Olick. One of his favorite things was, it's only 5 minutes, and that's the abuse of time and labor when people are standing around for 5 minutes waiting to be told what to do and waiting to know what to do next and where to go and where to get their supplies. So it's only 5 minutes times 5 people times 5 nights a week can make your labor costs upside down really fast. So
pretty soon you're 15% over budget and don't know why.
You don't know why. You don't know why you don't have any money.
Who bid this? Go ahead, Ed.
Well, there's also the deal that I walked into where I was told, okay, we want you to come to work and we're going to stick you here. And I couldn't figure out, why was I short-staffed and getting all these phone calls about that there's, I'm missing people, but yet I was over budget. It's kind of like, wait a minute. You're telling me that I'm over budget when I've got nothing but shortages here. I've got branch managers and store managers screaming at me that we're short. How does that happen? And a lot of it had to do with the startup, because during the startup, what somebody was able to do was they were able to get 38 people that all lived at one address on the payroll during the startup. So, and that was an awful lot of fun. It was $600,000 worth of brand new equipment missing. And what I was told was, at that point, when I interviewed with a company, I would say, okay, tell me what's happening. What is it that we need to fix? And with this guy, there's nothing to fix. It's like a little bit of tweaking. That's all. It's a little bit of tweaking with, 38 non-existent people putting my labor budget into the toilet.
That sounds like accounting fraud of some sort and an accounting control issue.
Yeah.
Amazing. Just amazing.
I think the other thing we might want to bring up, and I know we've talked to this in episodes, excuse me, I was looking for the word, is get in and see your customer the next day. If you can't see them, make a phone call and be ready. And I know, Sharon, you've preached this. I think you have to know what you're going to say. We started last night. Here's what we did. And how do you feel about the job, the startup, and check in with them. And we had regular, depending on the size account, regular check-in points during startups. 15 and 30 were 2 of them. 15 days in, 30 days in, 45, to touch base, nothing more. Even if it was just a phone call, you can head off a host of problems.
You can. And I even, in some cases, recommend more frequently, like maybe every week, depending on the size of the account, every week during the startup first 30 days. And it's much easier to get off on the good foot and keep it going smooth than to try and recover. You're swimming uphill afterwards if you're trying to recover from a deficiency. So it's much easier to overkill in the beginning and really be there a lot, and then wean yourself off of that as you see it's going well.
See, for me, it was unheard of not to show up after the first night, the second night, and the third night. And I mean, the only time it was really awful was when you're away from home, and you're in a hotel for a couple of days. But the idea that I'm going to be there when they open the door, and I'm going to be there when the phone calls come. I want to be sitting in the property manager's office when the phone calls come from the tenants,
Right.
And one of the big things, and it was the only thing everybody cared about on the first night, was don't miss it.
Trash get dumped. Yep.
No, but I mean, look, they're expecting you to miss a bunch of stuff. And if you can walk in, oh, there was no trash can calls. Oh, wow.
Trash cans and clean restrooms go a long way the first night.
Yeah. Yeah.
On particularly on a large account.
Don't forget to refill the toilet paper the first night.
Yeah. This isn't any empirical evidence, but what I found out over my 40 plus years of doing that, startups and everything, if you have a hard fail, and we can define what a hard fail is, but you really screw up. You have what they call a hard service fail, and you get on that radar in the first 90 days, you won't have that contract at the end of the year because you are always paddling upstream to try to prove to them you didn't lie to them at the sale. What do you guys think of that thought?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
You're struggling to survive, and that's not a way to make it through the year.
And depending on the size of the account, you're going to spend a lot of money to survive and get them to change their mind.
Yeah.
And you will not be 0 to 45 profitable. And those are for smaller accounts. We use that in the sub headline. But, we always operated, if we had a $5,000 to $8,000 a month account, our goal was always to be profitable in the second month, be on budget and be profitable. Bigger the account, the harder that is to do. And we're not going to go down that road. But, maybe that'd be an $8,000 account today with the way things have gone up. But we always looked at that, loved those jobs. We could start them, get to know the customers, get the right people in there, and basically be at or on just a little over budget by the time we start our fifth week.
Right.
And when you measure those kind of things, you work towards them. If you don't have those out in front of you, you don't do them. That's what I found out. We pretty much do what's in front of us and what we plan to do.
There was a company that was really big along the South, and I mean all the way from Florida, Carolinas, down to Texas and stuff like that. And they were in profit in the first week. Now, the building was dirty. And with this company, the building stayed dirty until they got thrown out. Okay. And now what the theory behind there was that you got to go sell. You have to go sell.
Okay.
You have to sell. Okay. Because you're not going to have the client that you just signed. They're not going to be around in 6 months. You better get out there and sell something. But it was amazing to see. Now, these guys had and I can mention their names because they no longer exist. But Sharon, do you remember Oxford?
Yes, I remember the name.
Okay. All right. What Oxford did was what they would do, they would take an engineer fresh out of college, okay, hand him a Columnar pad, a stopwatch, okay, and a pen, and he would go through and retune the building based on the density, the size of it, and so forth. And the cool thing is that you're starting out with an engineer. This is not a cleaner, okay? He's getting like a little bit more money, all right? This guy made his money back. The company made their money back, okay, in a month and a half. He would go through and just reconfigure everything. Okay. And they understood, they had to show them how to count ceiling tiles and walk off 3 foot, pace, a 3 foot pace. Okay. But it really was brilliant how they did that. And so, they certainly had a system in place not to be terrible, but it just turned out that it was an awful operation. I mean, everything you knew when you were in an Oxford building. It was kind of like, okay, are they ready to change yet? So,
I guess that's one strategy.
Yeah.
Oh, they exploded. They were big fast.
I remember the name. Yeah.
They weren't out here in the West, were they?
No. They were pretty much along the eastern seaboard up to like Virginia. Okay. And then all the way south and then out to Texas. So,
yeah.
Well, how about some closing thoughts and we'll wrap this up on startup secrets so you make money that'll make you not break you. Sharon or Ed, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think she hit it out of the park with her approach. So
yeah, I'd agree. So Sharon, you can wrap yourself up in the episode and we'll call it good. So go for it.
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's a simple.
Oh, now you take a tried old saying. Come on.
It doesn't get any simpler than that. You have to have a plan. It's the old, don't send them in with a mop and a bucket and tell them to clean. It's going to come
Well,
back.
the antithesis of that is piss poor planning does not constitute an emergency or failure on my part. So,
correct.
with all that said, what, Ed? Go ahead.
Who was the guy in Wisconsin that had a group? Sharon, you would remember this guy. But what he said was, he says, the startup. He says, you unlock the door, put the vac in there, put the barrel in there, and then you go back to your car and have a burrito.
And folks, on that happy note, we're going to say adios. We'll see you at the next episode. Thanks for watching. Take care.